The only time I actually use Safari as a browser is to download Google Chrome. Browsers are personal. They have all of your information, all of your data, your logins. So switching isn't something that you just do casually. So if I was to change, you'd have to give me a pretty good reason to do it. Ecosia has a genuinely good reason. Ecosia is a non-profit organization that's based in Berlin, and their browser works like any other with just one key difference. 100% of their profits go directly towards planting trees and protecting the environment. When I first heard about this, I thought it was great. So why haven't I switched? What's stopping me? Maybe I'm worried about losing my data and my logins, or it's going to be difficult to switch over. Whether we're conscious of it or not, these are the questions that are flicking through our brains every time we're evaluating a new product or a new tool. And I think this is something that every SaaS founder needs to understand. Sometimes simply being better isn't enough. You have to help people over these mental hurdles before they're willing to actually commit. Right now, Ecosia's landing page is answering some of those questions, but not all of them. Their mission is doing most of the heavy lifting, but mission alone doesn't convert. Worse, they've buried the one thing that makes them genuinely impossible to compete with and filled the space with features that anyone can copy. So in this episode, we're breaking down Ecosia's landing page. We'll look at where they're losing customers and why, and what you can do to avoid making the same mistakes. By the end, you'll know exactly how to turn "I'm curious" into "I'm in." So let's actually go through the page. I've broken it down here on the Miro board and we'll talk through each point. Right off at the top, we can see the greenest browser on Earth in the title, and then be climate active while you browse. So they're talking here in the hero section they're starting with a bold claim about Ecosia, but they're not really talking about what happens for you when you download it. What does this do for me? And why should I switch today? That's the main point that should be answered in the hero section, but right now that's missing. Just below this, we go directly into the mission section, and I think this is to be expected. It's all about the mission. So 100% of their profits are for the planet. And they back this up with some of the stats here about the number of trees planted and the amount of money that's been raised for climate action. I have two problems with this. I think we've went straight into the mission without explaining how it works. So people might need a clear explanation of how exactly does their browsing fund climate change or plant trees. That question is still not answered, and you're asking someone to fill in the gaps. So I think we should be telling them how it works first and then showing them the impact. On the other side, I think we have these big impact numbers like 250 million trees planted. It's so impressive, but it's really hard for me to quantify. Like, what does that mean for me personally? And I think we've missed an opportunity here to show the personal impact that someone can make. Underneath this, we have green features. And I think this is very weak copy. The best way to search with Ecosia, it doesn't really tell me anything. I don't really understand what that means, but they're leading then with a few features. So green searching is built in. You can track your impact and the world's greenest AI. Personally, I think track your impact is the most interesting part of this. I think it's so unique, and I think it's a genuine unique selling point that they're underselling here. It's kind of tucked away in between these other features. Below this, we're jumping into kind of general features. So we have privacy, we have fast loading and energy saving. This is what I mean when I mention they've filled the space with these features that anyone can copy. These are things that we come to expect from any browser. Like, it is going to be privacy focused, it's going to be fast, and it's going to be maybe not energy saving. But overall, I think there's so much space given to these when these could really be compacted down and be a secondary. I think the personal impact is so much more interesting. I think at this point in the page, people are looking for two things. They're looking for differentiation. So what makes you different to what I'm using right now? And reassurance. So is it easy to actually switch? And I think we're halfway down the page here and we still haven't answered those questions. Underneath here, we have import settings, and they're telling you a little bit about how you can make the switch from your current browser over to Ecosia, which I think is great. So it's addressing some hesitation, but it's not really giving me enough to convince me. There's also no comparison on this table, no table chart to tell me how it compares to Chrome or Safari. And if you don't answer those questions, people will leave to figure them out themselves. So I think that's a missed opportunity here as well. And then we finish off the page with switch to greener browsing in under 60 seconds. So it's a very strong title. I think it's great. It's not very visible because it's at the foot of the page. And it's kind of answering those hesitations. It's hinting at the fact that it's easy, like you can do it in 60 seconds. But again, I think we haven't really explained how, and this is too far down the page that a lot of people will have already missed it. So overall, I think the page is doing the basics right. They have a clear CTA, the mission is visible, they have credibility signals like the amount of trees planted, but it's leaving a huge amount of conversions on the table in 3 specific places. First of all, they're not clearly telling you what it is and how it works. So I think there is a clarity gap there. I think they're really underselling the personal impact that someone has, because that's something that's really unique to Ecosia. And I think the main problem here is the objections that people have about switching aren't being answered, and that is a problem. Okay, so let's actually talk about the main fixes for this page. Fix number 1, it's going to be redesigning this hero section to make it very clear what they do and what the outcome is for the user. So we have 5 seconds. That's all we have to convince someone that they're in the right place and to keep scrolling. Right now, Ecosia is leading with the greenest browser on Earth. So that sounds like something that you might put on an award. But the question every visitor landing on this page has is, what does this do for me and why should I switch today? The current headline answers neither of those questions. And I think this is one of the most important changes that we can make to this page, because if the title doesn't land, nothing else down the page will have a chance. So one simple rule to remember for your hero section: your hero should say what changes for the visitor, not what's great about you. So the second fix for this page is making the impact personal, but also tangible. I think this is the most unique thing about Ecosia, but they're underselling it badly right now. Every other browser can tell you what it blocks or how fast it is, but Ecosia can tell you exactly how many trees that's been planted from your browsing. And that's a really powerful hook, but it's also a feedback loop that creates habit and creates loyalty. Progress visibility changes behavior, and that's why companies like Duolingo are able to keep you using their product. The final fix is we're going to address some of those hesitations that people have about switching browsers. So switching browsers is a high friction activity for someone to take, and Ecosia even knows this. In an interview they did with TechCrunch, they said it's tough to get users to switch browsers, but the landing page doesn't really acknowledge that friction. It says download in less than 60 seconds at the footer, but nothing else really to address that hesitation. And I think this is really a silent conversion killer, because it doesn't show up on a heat map, or nobody's going to email you and say, oh, I was thinking about switching, but I was worried about losing my logins. They just don't sign up. And I think this is really what conversion optimization is all about. It's about understanding those hesitations that people have, the fears that stop them from using your product, and then addressing them on the page. I think fix 3 is really where the money is. I think fix number 1 and fix number 2 get people interested and excited, but fix 3 is actually what stops them from leaving. All right, so let's actually run through this redesigned page. First of all, you can see I've replaced the hero title with turn your everyday browsing into trees. And then below this, plant trees and protect the planet just by switching your browser. So much more impactful and so much more clear for the user about how it works, but also what the outcome is for them. So turn your everyday browsing into trees. I think we're pretty clear on that. We have one main CTA, so download Ecosia browser, and right below that, rather than having try Ecosia search or directing them away with a different CTA, we're just going to immediately address some of that hesitation, saying it takes 60 seconds to switch. So focusing on how quick it is. We're going to keep some of those big stats in the hero section, because I do think these add so much credibility. The amount of trees planted and the total amount raised is super impressive. So I'm going to keep that as a trust building element in the hero. Right below the hero, we're going to focus on explaining exactly how it works, how your browsing turns into trees. You search, Ecosia plants trees, and you track your impact. So really simple for someone to understand exactly the mechanism behind this. You search, ads generate revenue, and 100% of profits go towards protecting the planet. So now that I understand how it works, I'm going to be more likely to continue scrolling. And we're also hinting at the track your impact here, which again is one of those USPs that we're really trying to sell. Right below this section, I was thinking of a way that how we could show someone what their browsing will look like, or what their impact will look like, in a very, very simple way. And I think storytelling is an often underused element on a landing page. So in this section, I thought it would be interesting to introduce a character like Sarah and just pitch them a scenario that maybe they can relate to. Maybe they can self-identify with someone like Sarah. So I wrote, Sarah didn't have a problem with her browser, but she was tired of making Google richer. So 3 weeks ago, she switched to Ecosia. It took her 60 seconds and her bookmarks moved over automatically. Since then, her browsing has funded 6 trees in Kenya, Brazil, and Indonesia. Same speed, same quality, but now her browser quietly funds climate action. So there's a few things that we're really hinting at here. Sarah didn't have a problem with her browser. I don't think many people have a browser problem. So we're kind of making it relatable immediately and calling that out. But she was tired of making Google richer. I think a lot of people understand that pain and can relate to that. So she switched 3 weeks ago, took her 60 seconds. Again, we're hinting at how easy this will be. Bookmarks moved over automatically. And then since then, her browsing has funded 6 trees. So this is the big outcome that we want people to see. 6 trees after just switching her browser, same speed, same quality, but now her browser quietly funds climate action. So we've made it relatable. And I think this is a powerful way just to bring users on that journey and show them what it's like if they're actually to start using your tool. Below this, we've taken all the features that were on the page already. So privacy focused browsing, fast and familiar, energy saving, planet positive. But I think having it in a 3-column like this works very well, and it just tells people that Ecosia does what your normal browser does. The next section we're going to bring here is just touching on Ecosia's AI. They use less energy intensive models for their searching, and I think this is an important point, especially for the type of people that are coming to Ecosia who are conscious about the planet and conscious about the impact that AI is having on energy. I know this is something that I think about when I'm using AI, like how are we fueling all of this? How is this sustainable? So I do think talking about this section is important, particularly for the type of demographic that are going to be using Ecosia's browser. Next section we're jumping into is a comparison table. So looks and feels like your current browser, acts very differently. This is one of the things that I think a lot of SaaS landing page miss. People are trying to evaluate you versus your competitors. So what are the different features? What are the different benefits of using your product over the other? And sometimes just laying it out in a very simple table like this is very effective. Even calling out your weak points, just allowing people to see it very clearly. Because if you're not answering those questions, they need to go somewhere else to figure that information out. The next section is really about addressing those hesitations again. Like, what are the main blockers stopping people from switching? For me, it's the hassle of switching everything over. So all of your data, all of your bookmarks, all of that information that's stored. And Ecosia actually makes this very simple. They allow you to export it and import all your bookmarks and history and passwords. So it's something that was probably missing from the previous landing page that we want to make a lot more visible. So we're just laying it out in a 3-step. So download Ecosia browser, import your bookmarks, history, and passwords, and start searching as normal. Trying to make it as smooth as possible for someone to make that leap. Underneath this, we're going to, again, address the main concerns that people have, and we're going to do this with a frequently asked questions section. What are the main questions that people come to this landing page wondering? I'm sure we can dive deep into figuring out what those are, but we're going to lay them out very simply here. So as soon as someone reads their question, they have that answer and that hesitation is immediately addressed. Then to finish the page, we're going to back it up with a trust building section. So we're going to focus on the impact again. 200 million people using Ecosia, 900 plus native species. We're showing the impact all over the world. And then finally, another CTA, join 20 million people making a difference every day. So that's it. I think Ecosia has a really powerful product. It's such a genuinely good reason for people to switch. But I think the main problem was they weren't really addressing those hesitations that people have. Switching your browser is high friction. It's something that not many of us consider doing. So if you have a genuinely good reason to make me switch, you need to back that up with addressing my hesitations that I have to actually doing that. So if you want me to do an audit like this on your website and identify where exactly you're losing traffic, backed up with the data that you have in Google Analytics, there's going to be a link in my bio that you can go and book an audit and get this kind of analysis done for your own website. But that's all for this one. I'll see you in the next one.